Marcus Chen sat in row 12 of Carnegie Hall. The red velvet seat felt soft under him. Around him, hundreds of people waited in silence. The lights went down. A small girl walked onto the stage. She was 7 years old. Her name was Lily Wang. She wore a white dress that touched her ankles. Her black hair was pulled back tight. She looked tiny next to the grand piano. The piano was bigger than she was. The audience held their breath. Lily sat on the bench. Her feet did not touch the floor. Someone had put books on the pedals so she could reach them. Her small hands lifted over the keys. Then she began to play. The music filled the hall. It was Rachmaninoff. This was music that made grown men cry. Music that professional pianists practiced for years to master. But this little girl played it like she was born knowing it. Her fingers moved fast. They hit every note perfectly. The hard parts, the parts where most people made mistakes, she played them easily.
She did not look at the keys.
Her eyes were closed. She swayed with the music like she was dancing. Marcus watched her carefully. He did not smile like the other people. He did not look amazed. He looked sad. Next to him, a woman whispered to her husband. "She is a genius." "A natural-born genius," the husband nodded. He held up his phone. He was recording the performance. "Some people are just born with it," he whispered back. "God-given talent." Around them, other people nodded. They believed this too. The little girl was special. She had a gift that normal people did not have. She was born different, born better at music. Marcus knew the truth. He knew something they did not know, something that made his chest feel heavy. The music ended. Lily stood up. She bowed. The audience stood up too. They clapped so hard their hands hurt. They shouted. Some people had tears on their faces. They had just seen a miracle. A child prodigy, a wonder of nature. Lily bowed again. She smiled, but the smile looked strange. It looked tired. It looked like a smile she had practiced many times in a mirror. Then she walked off the stage. Her mother was waiting in the wings. Marcus could see them from his seat. The mother bent down. She said something in Lily's ear. Lily nodded fast. The smile stayed on her face, but her eyes looked empty. Marcus had seen that look before. He had seen it in the mirror when he was 7 years old. The lights came back on. People started leaving. They talked excitedly. "Incredible," one man said. "How does she do it?" A woman asked. "She must have started in the womb," someone joked. Everyone laughed. Marcus stayed in his seat. He let the crowd pass. His mind went back 30 years. Back to when he was the one on stage. Back when newspapers called him the Piano Boy Wonder. Back when everyone thought he was born special. He remembered the article in Time magazine. There was a picture of him at age 6. The headline said, "Born to play the mystery of musical genius." The article talked about Mozart. It talked about how some people were just born knowing music. It said Marcus was one of these special people. But Marcus remembered the truth the article did not tell. He remembered waking up at 5 in the morning. Every morning. Even on his birthday. Even on Christmas. His father would come to his room. His father would open the door and say, "Time to practice." He remembered sitting at the piano before the sun came up. His small hands were cold. His eyes were tired. But he had to practice. 2 hours before breakfast. Every single day. He remembered coming home from school. Other kids went to the park. Other kids played games. Marcus went to the piano. Another 3 hours. Sometimes 4. His mother would sit behind him. She would tell him when he made mistakes. She would make him play the same part again. And again, and again. 20 times. 50 times. Until it was perfect. He remembered dinner time. His parents would talk about his career. They called it a career. He was 6 years old. They talked about which competitions he would enter, which teachers he would study with, which concerts he would perform. They never asked him what he wanted. They never asked if he was tired. They never asked if he wanted to play with other kids. He remembered weekend trips, not to the beach, not to the zoo, to other cities, to perform, to compete. His father drove. His mother sat in the back seat with him. She would make him practice on a keyboard in the car. A silent keyboard, just moving his fingers, over and over, getting the muscle memory right. He remembered the night before competitions. He could not sleep. His stomach hurt. He was so scared of making mistakes. His parents had spent so much money. They had given up so much. He had to win. He had to be perfect. He was 7 years old and he had to be perfect. But the newspapers never wrote about that. The magazines never showed pictures of the 5 a.m. practice sessions. The TV interviews never talked about the thousands of hours. They just talked about talent, natural ability, born genius. Marcus understood why they did this. The truth was boring. The truth was uncomfortable. Nobody wanted to hear that the cute little piano prodigy spent 8 hours a day practicing. Nobody wanted to know that she had no friends her own age. Nobody wanted to think about what her childhood really looked like. The miracle story was better. The born genius story sold more magazines, made better TV, got more views on YouTube. Everyone loved a good miracle. Marcus pulled out his notebook. He was a music psychologist now. He had spent the last 15 years studying child prodigies. He interviewed them. He interviewed their parents. He interviewed their teachers. He looked at the science. He looked at the research. He looked at the truth that nobody wanted to talk about. He had interviewed 23 former child prodigies, kids who had been called geniuses, kids who had performed at famous concert halls, kids whose faces had been on magazine covers. Only 2 of them still played piano as adults. Only 2 out of 23. The others had quit. Some quit at age 12, some at 15, some at 18. They were burned out, tired, angry. Some of them said they hated music now. The thing that was supposed to be their gift had become their prison. Marcus had files on his computer, medical records, therapy notes, all anonymous, of course. But they told a different story than the newspapers told. They talked about anxiety disorders, depression, eating problems, sleep problems, children who could not make friends, children who did not know how to play, children who thought their only value was how well they performed. He had recordings too, recordings that parents had made of practice sessions. They had shared them proudly with him. They thought the recordings showed dedication, showed passion. Marcus had watched them and felt sick. One recording showed a 4-year-old girl at a piano. She had been practicing for 2 hours. She was crying. She said her hands hurt. Her mother's voice came from behind the camera. 5 more minutes, the mother said. Then you can have a snack. The little girl kept playing. Tears ran down her face. But she kept playing. The mother had shown Marcus this video with a smile. You see how dedicated she is? The mother had said. Even at 4 years old. That is real talent. Marcus had not known what to say. Now he sat in Carnegie Hall. The building was almost empty. A cleaning person pushed a vacuum in the back. Marcus looked at the stage where little Lily had played. He thought about his research. All the data he had collected. All the interviews. All the evidence. It all pointed to one conclusion. Piano prodigies were real. They existed. But they were not born. They were made. Made through thousands of hours of practice. Made through sacrifice. Made through pressure. Made through giving up everything else in childhood. The question was not whether prodigies were real. The question was whether anyone wanted to hear the truth. Whether the music industry wanted people to know. Whether parents wanted to believe it. Because if people knew the truth, everything would change. The competitions would look different. The concert tours would feel different. The cute videos of 5-year-olds playing Chopin would not seem so cute anymore. Marcus closed his notebook. He stood up. He walked down the aisle toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the empty hall. Tomorrow he would start writing his book. He would tell the truth, all of it. The truth about what it really took to make a prodigy. The truth about what happened to those children when they grew up. The truth that the music world did not want anyone to know. He pushed open the heavy doors. The cold New York air hit his face. Behind him, Carnegie Hall stood tall and beautiful. Inside that building, the myth lived on. The myth of natural genius. The myth of born talent. The myth that let everyone feel good about putting 7-year-olds on stage. Marcus walked into the night. He had been that 7-year-old once. He knew what it cost, and he was finally ready to tell everyone. Marcus started his research with 3 families, 3 children who everyone called prodigies. 3 different stories that were really all the same story. The first family was the Zhangs. They lived in San Francisco. Marcus met them on a Tuesday morning. Their house was nice, big windows, clean floors. But the first thing Marcus noticed was the piano. It sat in the living room like a king on a throne. Everything else in the room was arranged around it. Sophie Jiang was 6 years old. She had already won 8 competitions. She had been on the local news twice. Her YouTube videos had millions of views. People called her the next great pianist. Sophie's mother, Linda, made tea for Marcus. She smiled a lot. She was proud. Very proud. "Sophie is special," Linda said. "We knew it when she was very young. She just understood music naturally." Marcus asked when Sophie started playing. Linda thought for a moment. "She was 2.5, Linda said. "She walked up to the piano one day and played a melody she had heard. Just like that. We knew then that she was gifted." Marcus wrote this down. Then he asked the question he always asked. "How many hours does Sophie practice each day?" Linda's smile got a little smaller. "Well, she loves it so much, she wants to practice. We do not force her." "How many hours?" Marcus asked again. Gently, not judging. 6 hours, Linda said. "Sometimes 8. But she enjoys it. It is not like work for her." Marcus asked if he could see Sophie's practice space. Linda took him upstairs. Sophie's room was small. There was a bed, a small desk, and a keyboard. The keyboard took up most of the room. "She practices here when she is not at the main piano," Linda explained. "For finger exercises, for memorization work." Marcus looked around. No toys, no dolls, no games. There were books, but they were all about music. Books about composers, books about technique, books about famous pianists. "Where does Sophie play?" Marcus asked. Linda looked confused. "She plays downstairs, at the piano." "No, I mean play, with toys, with friends." Linda was quiet for a moment. "She does not have much time for that. Her schedule is very full, but she has piano friends, kids she sees at competitions." Marcus asked to look at Sophie's schedule. Linda showed him a calendar on her phone. It was color-coded. Every hour of every day was planned. 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., morning practice, 7 to 8, breakfast and getting ready, 8 to noon, homeschool lessons, noon to 1, lunch, 1 to 4, afternoon practice. 4 to 5, theory lessons online, 5 to 6, dinner, 6 to 8, evening practice, 8 to 9, bath and bedtime routine. Every single day, the same schedule. Only Sunday was different. On Sunday, practice started at 6 instead of 5. "What about friends?" Marcus asked. "Birthday parties, the park?" Linda looked uncomfortable. "Sophie will have time for that later. Right now is important. If we wait, we miss the window. The brain is most flexible when they are young. This is what her teacher says." Marcus met the teacher the next day. His name was Mr. Park. He was famous. He had trained many successful pianists. His waiting list was 2 years long, but he had accepted Sophie immediately. Mr. Park's studio was in an old building downtown. The room was cold. There were 3 pianos. The walls were covered with pictures. Pictures of his students, pictures from concerts, pictures with famous musicians. "Sophie has the gift," Mr. Park told Marcus. "Some children have it, some do not. You can see it in the first lesson." Marcus asked what the gift looked like. Mr. Park thought about this. "They understand music," he said. "They feel it. It comes naturally to them." "But she still practices 6 to 8 hours daily?" Marcus asked. "Of course," Mr. Park said. He looked surprised by the question. "The gift is just the beginning. It must be developed. Like a seed must be watered. Practice is the water." Marcus asked how many hours Mr. Park thought was healthy for a 6-year-old. Mr. Park waved his hand like the question was silly. "There is no such thing as too much if the child loves it," he said. "Mozart practiced all day. Beethoven practiced all day. If Sophie wants to be great, she must do what great ones do." Marcus wrote everything down. He watched Sophie's lesson. It was 2 hours long. Sophie sat perfectly still, her back straight, her hands curved just right. When she made a mistake, Mr. Park stopped her. made her play it again and again. Sophie did not complain. She just played it again. After the lesson, Marcus asked Sophie if she liked piano. She nodded. Yes, she said. But her voice was quiet, flat. What is your favorite thing about it? Marcus asked. Sophie looked at her mother, then back at Marcus. Making the music perfect, she said. It sounded like something she'd been taught to say. What do you do for fun? Marcus asked. Sophie looked confused, like she did not understand the question. I play piano, she said. Marcus visited on 3 more days. He watched the morning practice. Linda sat in a chair behind Sophie. She had a notebook. Every time Sophie made a mistake, Linda wrote it down. At the end, they went over all the mistakes. Sophie had to play each part 10 times correctly before they moved on. One morning, Sophie asked if she could stop early. She said her hands hurt. Linda looked at the clock. They had been practicing for 90 minutes. 30 more minutes, Linda said. Then we break for breakfast. Sophie's eyes filled with tears, but she kept playing. Later, Linda showed Marcus something on her computer. Videos. Hundreds of videos. Every practice session since Sophie was 3 years old was recorded. I wanted to document her journey, Linda explained. She clicked on a video. It showed Sophie at age 3. Tiny. Her feet dangling off the piano bench. She was playing the same 5 notes over and over. The video was 20 minutes long. Just those same 5 notes. Look how focused she is, Linda said proudly. Even at 3. That is the gift. Marcus watched Sophie in the video. She was not focused. She was bored. She kept looking at the door. She kept trying to climb down from the bench, but Linda's voice kept coming from behind the camera. Again, Sophie. One more time. Marcus asked Linda and her husband about their backgrounds. Neither had musical training. Linda was an accountant. Her husband worked in tech. They had learned about child development from books, from websites, from other parents of prodigies. We knew if we started early enough, if we were consistent enough, Sophie could be great, Linda said. Every parent wants the best for their child. This is Sophie's path to success. The second family Marcus studied was the Johnsons. They lived in Chicago. Their son, Ethan, was 8. He had been performing since he was 5. Ethan's story was similar. Started piano at age 3, practiced 6 hours daily, homeschooled, no time for normal kid activities. His parents were not musicians either. His father was a lawyer. His mother had been a nurse, but quit to manage Ethan's career full-time. Career was the word they used. Ethan was 8 and they called it a career. Ethan's mother, Rebecca, had spreadsheets tracking every practice session, every competition, every performance. She had graphs showing his progress. She had financial records showing what they had spent. So far, it was over $200,000. Teachers, travel, competition fees, a special piano, recording equipment. It is an investment, Rebecca explained. When Ethan makes it big, when he is touring the world, it will all be worth it. Marcus asked what would happen if Ethan decided he did not want to play piano anymore. Rebecca laughed. Not a real laugh, a nervous laugh. That will not happen, she said. This is who Ethan is. This is his identity. He is a pianist. But Marcus talked to Ethan alone. The boy was quiet, careful with his words, like he was afraid of saying the wrong thing. Do you like piano? Marcus asked. Ethan shrugged. It is okay. What would you do if you had a free day? No practice, no lessons, just free time. Ethan looked at the ceiling. He thought for a long time. I do not know, he finally said. I never had that. The third family was the Patel family in Boston. Their daughter Maya was 7. Her story was the same. Same long practice hours, same lack of normal childhood, same parents who believed in natural talent while pushing for thousands of hours of practice. But Maya's parents added something extra. They had hired a sports psychologist, someone to help Maya handle performance pressure. Maya was 7, and she needed a psychologist to help her handle stress. The psychologist's notes were full of concerning things. Maya had nightmares about forgetting music on stage. She pulled out her own hair when she practiced. She threw up before performances. But her parents saw these as signs that Maya cared. "She wants to be perfect," her father said. "That drive is what makes a champion." Marcus spent 3 months with these 3 families. He watched, he listened, he took notes, he recorded interviews. He saw the same patterns over and over. The parents all said their children were naturally gifted, born special, but they also pushed intense practice schedules. They controlled every hour of the day. They had given up normal childhood for music. The parents all said their children loved piano. But the children looked tired. They looked stressed. They looked like small adults carrying big burdens. The teachers all talked about natural talent, about gifts, about special abilities. But they also demanded perfection. They required thousands of practice hours. They treated these small children like professional musicians. And everyone made money. The teachers charged hundreds of dollars per lesson. The competition organizers charged fees. Marcus decided he needed to talk to the people who ran the music industry, the teachers who trained prodigies, the judges who picked winners at competitions, the agents who booked child performers, the people who really knew what was going on. But he could not just interview them normally. When he asked direct questions, people gave him careful answers, safe answers. Answers that sounded good for newspapers and magazines. So Marcus tried something different. He told people the interviews were off the record. No names would be used. No one would know who said what. He promised complete privacy. That changed everything. The first person who agreed to talk honestly was a piano teacher named Margaret. She had taught for 40 years. She had trained dozens of famous pianists. She had a waiting list of 300 families who wanted lessons with her. They met at a coffee shop. Margaret was 70 years old. She had gray hair and tired eyes. She ordered tea and sat across from Marcus. "I am glad someone is finally asking these questions," she said. "I have wanted to talk about this for years." Marcus turned on his recorder. Margaret looked at it and nodded. "The whole system is built on a lie," Margaret said. "We tell parents their children are gifted. We tell them their children are special. We tell them their children have natural talent that must be nurtured. But it is not true," Marcus asked. Margaret shook her head. "Some children learn faster than others. That is true. Some children have better coordination. Some have better memory. But genius? Born talent that makes them different from everyone else? No, that is not how it works." She took a sip of tea. Her hands shook a little. "When a 3-year-old comes to me for lessons, I can usually tell within a month if the parents are serious. Not if the child is talented. If the parents are serious, because it is really about the parents." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "A child that young does not decide to play piano 8 hours a day," Margaret explained. "The parents decide. The parents make the schedule. The parents enforce the practice. The parents give up their lives to drive to lessons and competitions. The parents pay thousands of dollars. It is the parents' dream. The child is just living it." Marcus wrote this down carefully. "But why tell parents their children are gifted if it is not true?" he asked. Margaret smiled sadly. "Because that is what they want to hear. If I told a parent your child is average, but if you spend 10,000 hours and $100,000 I can train them to play well, they would not come back. But if I tell them your child has a special gift that I can help develop, they sign up immediately." She looked out the window. "I need students. I need to make a living. The whole industry needs students. So we tell the story people want to hear." Marcus met with other teachers. They all said similar things. The gifted child story was marketing. It was how teachers got students, how they kept students, how they justified high prices. One teacher who asked not to be named at all said something that made Marcus feel cold. "We start them young on purpose," the teacher said. "Age 2, age 3. That is the sweet spot. Their brains are like clay. They cannot really choose yet. They do what parents tell them. By the time they are old enough to choose, piano is all they know. It is their identity. It is hard to quit when it is your whole life." Another teacher admitted something else. "We know most of them will burn out. Maybe 80%, maybe 90%, but we need that 10 or 20% who make it, who become famous, who win big competitions. Those are the ones we use for advertising. Those are the ones that bring in more students. Marcus asked what happened to the 80 or 90% who did not make it. The teacher shrugged. They quit. They move on. That is life. Not everyone can be a star. But Marcus thought about those children, all those years of practice, all those lost childhoods, all for nothing. Next, Marcus talked to competition judges. These were people who decided which children won and which children lost. People who had a lot of power in the music world. A judge named Robert agreed to talk off the record. He had judged competitions for 25 years. The competition system is broken, Robert said. Everyone knows it, but nobody says it. He explained how it worked. Families paid hundreds or thousands of dollars to enter competitions. They traveled across the country. They stayed in hotels. They bought formal clothes for their children. They hired coaches to prepare. The competitions make money from entry fees, Robert said. The more children who compete, the more money they make. So they want lots of entries. They want the myth to continue. The myth that if you win competitions, you become famous. You make it big. But it does not work that way? Marcus asked. Almost never, Robert said. I have seen thousands of child competition winners. Maybe 5 or 6 became successful professional musicians. Maybe. The rest? I have no idea what happened to them. He told Marcus something else, something that made Marcus angry. We judge based on perfection, Robert explained. Technical perfection. Every note correct. Perfect rhythm. Perfect dynamics. That is what wins competitions. That does not sound bad, Marcus said. But it is not music, Robert said. Real music has soul, has feeling, has interpretation. But you cannot judge those things easily. They are subjective, so we judge technique. We judge perfection, and that makes children practice like robots, learning to play perfectly but not learning to play with heart. He looked sad. I have seen 8-year-olds play pieces that make me think of robots. Technically perfect, emotionally dead, and we give them first place. We give them trophies. We tell them they are amazing. We are teaching them the wrong things. Marcus interviewed more judges. Most said the same things. The competition system favored technical perfection over musical expression. It favored children who practiced like machines. It rewarded the wrong things. One judge admitted that sometimes winners were decided before the competition even started. We know which teachers send students. We know which families have money and connections. Sometimes those things matter more than the actual playing. Marcus felt sick hearing this. Then he talked to agents. People who managed child performers. People who booked them for concerts. People who made money from them. An agent named Sarah agreed to meet. She was young, maybe 30. She dressed in expensive clothes. She had a big office in Manhattan. Child prodigies are good business, Sarah said. She did not seem ashamed of this. People love watching kids perform. It is amazing. It is cute. It sells tickets. She showed Marcus her client list. 23 children under age 12. All of them performing regularly. All of them making money. The key is the story, Sarah explained. Every prodigy needs a good story. Born with talent. Started playing at age 2. Never had lessons but just understood music naturally. That kind of thing. Even if it is not true? Marcus asked. Sarah smiled. It is marketing. We shape the truth to make it interesting. Parents want their kids to be famous. We help make that happen. Everyone wins, Marcus asked about the children. What happened to them? Some make it. Some do not, Sarah said simply. That is show business. It is competitive. Not everyone can be a star. She told Marcus about the money. A child prodigy could earn $50,000 to $200,000 per year. Maybe more if they got famous. Concerts paid $10,000 to $20,000 per performance. YouTube videos earned ad money. Sponsorships from piano companies. Teaching positions when they got older. There is real money in this, Sarah said. For everyone. The child earns. The parents manage the money. I get 20%. The teachers get paid for lessons. The competition organizers make money. Concert halls sell tickets. It is an industry, a real industry. Marcus started to understand. So many people made money from child prodigies. It was not just about music. It was about business. And business needed customers. Customers needed to believe their children could be stars. So everyone kept telling the talent story. Marcus met with people who worked at music conservatories, famous schools like Juilliard, Curtis, New England Conservatory, the schools everyone wanted to get into. A professor who asked to remain completely anonymous told Marcus about admissions. "We still use the idea of natural talent in our admissions," the professor said. "We look for gifted students." But what does that really mean? It means students who have practiced 10,000 hours before they apply. Usually they are from wealthy families who could afford intense training. We are not finding natural talent. We are finding children who had resources and time to practice constantly. The professor explained more. A poor child who cannot afford lessons, who cannot afford a piano, who has to work after school to help their family, that child has no chance. Even if they have musical potential, even if they could be great, they never get to develop it. So our schools are full of children from upper middle class families. That is not about talent. That is about money and opportunity. Marcus learned that the whole classical music world ran on this system. Prestigious teachers charged more money and had long waiting lists. They taught mostly rich kids. Those kids got into top schools. They got connections. They got opportunities. They became the next generation of professional musicians. Poor kids rarely made it. Not because they had less talent, because they had less opportunity. Marcus talked to people at music foundations. Marcus needed to talk to people who had lived through the prodigy system, adults who had been child prodigies, people who could tell him what happened after the concerts ended, after the competitions were over, after childhood was gone. Finding them was harder than he thought. Many former prodigies did not want to talk. They had moved on. They had new lives. They did not want to remember. But slowly, Marcus found people who were willing to share their stories. The first person was Emily Torres. She was 23 years old. When she was young, newspapers called her the next Martha Argerich. She was going to be one of the greats. Everyone said so. Emily agreed to meet at a park. She worked in marketing now. She wore normal clothes, jeans and a sweater. Nothing fancy. She looked like any other young woman, except for her hands. She had pianist hands, long fingers, strong. "I have not touched a piano in 5 years," Emily said right away. Like she needed Marcus to know this first. They sat on a bench. It was autumn. Leaves were falling. "Tell me about growing up," Marcus said gently. Emily took a deep breath. "I started piano when I was 3. My parents put me in lessons. I was good at it. I learned fast, so they got me a better teacher. Then a better one. Then the best teacher in our city. By the time I was 6, I was practicing 4 hours a day. By 8, it was 6 hours. By 10, it was 8 hours. Every single day." Marcus asked about school, about friends. "I was homeschooled," Emily said. "My mom taught me in the mornings. Quick lessons, math, reading, the basics. Then piano all afternoon and evening. No time for real school. No time for friends." She looked at the trees. "I did not have a single birthday party growing up. Not one. My birthday was just another practice day. Sometimes we would have cake after dinner. That was it." Emily talked about competitions. She went to her first one at age 5. She won. Then she won the next one. And the next? By age 8, she was traveling every month. Different cities. Different countries. Always competing. "My parents spent everything on my career," she said. "They called it my career. I was 8 years old. They sold our house and moved to New York so I could study with a famous teacher. My dad took a worse job because we needed flexible hours for my schedule. My mom stopped working completely to manage me." "Manage you?" Marcus asked. That is what it felt like. Being managed. Every hour planned. Every meal planned. Everything about my life was about piano. What I ate was about keeping energy for practice. Where we lived was about being near my teacher. Who I could talk to was limited, because my parents said most people did not understand the prodigy life. I was not a kid. I was a project. Emily described her teenage years. That was when things got really hard. I started having panic attacks at 12, she said. Before performances, my heart would race. I could not breathe. I would throw up. My parents took me to a doctor. The doctor said it was anxiety. Performance anxiety. They gave me medicine. The medicine helped with the panic attacks, but it made me feel foggy. So I stopped taking it. Then the panic attacks came back worse. It was a cycle. She talked about the pressure. Everyone had invested so much in me. My parents, my teachers, agents, people who had given me scholarships. Everyone expected me to be great, to be famous, to justify all that time and money. But I was just a kid, Emily said. Her voice cracked. I was just a kid who wanted to be normal. I saw other teenagers going to school, having friends, going to movies, having normal problems, and I was practicing 8 hours a day preparing for competitions. Marcus asked about her family relationships. Emily was quiet for a long moment. My relationship with my parents is complicated. They love me. I know they do, but they pushed me so hard, too hard. They gave up everything for my piano career. But they never asked if I wanted that. They just assumed, and when I was a kid, I thought making them proud was the most important thing, so I kept going. She described what happened when she turned 17. She had just lost a major competition. Second place, not first. Her teacher was disappointed. Her parents were disappointed. Emily looked at them and felt something break inside her. I realized I hated piano, she said. I hated it so much. The sound of it made me feel sick. The sight of a piano made my chest hurt. This thing that was supposed to be my gift, my passion, had become torture. Emily told her parents she wanted to stop. She wanted to go to regular college, study something else, have a normal life. They did not understand, Emily said. They thought I was just tired. They said I should take a week off, then get back to practice. They said I was too close to making it big to quit now. They did not hear what I was saying. She took another deep breath. I had to leave. At 18, I moved out. I applied to colleges in secret. I got into a state school. I majored in business. My parents barely spoke to me for 2 years. Do they speak to you now? Marcus asked. Yes, but it is different. There is hurt there. They feel like I wasted their sacrifice. All those years. All that money. All for nothing. They see my life now, working a normal job, living a normal life, and they think I threw away something special. Marcus asked the question he needed to ask. Do you think you threw it away? Emily shook her head firmly. No, I got my life back. I have friends now. Real friends. I go out. I have hobbies. I read books for fun. I watch movies. I do normal things. Things I never got to do as a kid. I am happier now than I ever was as a prodigy. Do you ever play piano? Marcus asked. No, Emily said. Maybe someday. But right now I cannot. Too many bad memories. Too much pressure attached to it. Piano means pain for me. It means lost childhood. It means broken relationships. Maybe that will change. But not yet. Marcus interviewed more former prodigies. Their stories were all similar. Different details, but the same themes. David Kim was 25. He had been called a genius. He performed at Carnegie Hall at age 9. Now he worked in software. I was homeschooled from age 5, David told Marcus. We traveled more than 200 days per year. Competitions, performances, masterclasses. I lived in hotels and airports. I never had a home. Not really. David talked about loneliness. I never made real friends. How could I? I was never in one place long enough. I would meet other kids at competitions, but then we would go home. Back to practicing, back to being alone. My whole identity was piano. When people asked me about myself, I had nothing to say except piano. I did not have hobbies, did not have interests, did not know who I was outside of music. David quit piano at 19. I had a breakdown. Full breakdown. I was at a competition in Germany. I walked out on stage and just froze. Could not play. Could not move. Just stood there. Eventually someone led me off stage. After that, I could not do it anymore. I tried. I went back to practicing. But every time I sat at the piano, I would freeze. My therapist said it was trauma. My body was rejecting piano because of all the stress I had put it through. Now David worked as a programmer. I make good money. I have friends. I go hiking on weekends. I play video games. I am learning who I am as a person. Not as a pianist. As a person. It has taken years. Marcus met Sarah Chen. She was 27. She had won major competitions as a child. Her face had been on magazine covers. Now she was a teacher. Elementary school teacher. Not music. Just regular school. I teach second grade, Sarah said. And when I see my students 7 and 8 years old playing at recess, laughing, being kids, I feel sad. because I never got that. At their age, I was practicing 6 hours a day. I was competing internationally. I was treated like a small adult. Sarah talked about her body. I have chronic pain in my hands and wrists from practicing too much too young. My bones were still growing. The repetitive motion damaged things. I had surgery at 21. The pain never fully went away. She also talked about her mental health. I was diagnosed with depression at 16. I had thoughts about hurting myself. Not because I wanted to die, but because I wanted the pressure to stop. And the only way I could imagine it stopping was if something happened to my hands. If I could not play, I would be free. That statement made Marcus feel cold. A child wanting to hurt herself to escape piano. I got help, Sarah said. Therapy, medicine, it helped. But I still quit piano at 22. I needed to. For my health. For my life. Marcus asked if she ever regretted quitting. Sarah thought about it. Sometimes I wonder what could have been. If I had kept going. If I had pushed through. Maybe I would be famous now. Playing in concert halls. Recording albums. That was the dream everyone had for me. But then I think about what I have now. I have peace. I can sleep at night. I do not have panic attacks before work. I enjoy my life. I have time for relationships, time for myself, and I think that is worth more than fame, at least for me. Not everyone Marcus interviewed had quit music. 2 people still played professionally, but their stories were not happy either. Michael Ross was 30. He performed regularly. He had made albums. He taught at a conservatory. From the outside, he had made it. But I'm miserable, Michael told Marcus. I hate piano. I have hated it since I was a teenager. But it is all I know. I do not have other skills. I sacrificed everything else for this. If I quit, what would I do? I am 30 and piano is the only thing I can do. Michael talked about feeling trapped. People think professional musicians love music. Marcus needed to understand the science. What did research actually say about musical talent? About child development? About how people became good at music? He started reading studies. Hundreds of studies. Papers about practice and skill. Papers about brain development. Papers about expertise and learning. The first researcher Marcus contacted was Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She studied expertise at Stanford University. She had spent 20 years researching how people became experts in different fields: music, sports, chess, science. They met at her office on campus. The walls were covered with charts and graphs. Dr. Mitchell was in her 50s. She wore glasses and had short gray hair. She got right to the point. The idea of natural-born talent is mostly myth, she said. At least for complex skills like music. The research does not support it. She pulled up a study on her computer. This is research we did tracking musicians from childhood to adulthood. We looked at thousands of people. We measured their early abilities. We tracked their practice time. We measured their eventual skill level. What we found was simple. Practice time was the biggest predictor of skill. Not early ability, not talent. Practice time. The more someone practiced, the better they got. That was the pattern. Marcus asked about prodigies, the kids who seemed naturally gifted. We looked at prodigies specifically, Dr. Mitchell said. Kids who showed exceptional ability very young. What we found was they all had one thing in common. They had practiced much more than other kids their age. Not a little more. Much more. She showed Marcus more data. A typical prodigy at age 7 has already practiced 3,000 to 5,000 hours. A normal kid taking weekly piano lessons has maybe practiced 200 hours total. By age 7, the prodigy has practiced 15 to 25 times more. That is the difference. Not talent. Practice time. Dr. Mitchell explained about brain development. Young brains are very flexible. They change based on experience. This is called neuroplasticity. When a child practices piano intensively from age 2 or 3, their brain physically changes to support that skill. The motor cortex areas controlling finger movement grow larger. The auditory processing areas become more efficient. New neural pathways form. This is not magic. This is not talent. This is brain adaptation to intensive practice. She showed Marcus brain scans. Scans of professional musicians compared to non-musicians. The differences were clear. Musicians had different brain structures. But here is the key thing, Dr. Mitchell said. These brain differences are not present at birth. They develop through practice. We know this because we can scan children before and after music training. We can watch the changes happen. Marcus asked about Mozart. Everyone always talked about Mozart as proof of natural genius. Dr. Mitchell smiled like she had been expecting this question. Mozart is the example everyone uses. Child prodigy, writing symphonies at age 5. Must be born with it, right? Wrong. Mozart's father was a professional musician and teacher. He started teaching Mozart before age 3. Mozart practiced constantly under his father's strict instruction. By age 5, Mozart had already practiced thousands of hours. His early compositions were not original works. They were arrangements and modifications of other people's music. Good for a child, yes, but not miraculous, not unexplainable. Mozart was not born a genius. He was intensively trained from toddlerhood by an expert teacher who happened to be his father. That explains his abilities much better than magic talent. Marcus learned about a researcher named Anders Ericsson. Ericsson had studied expertise for decades. He was famous for research on deliberate practice. Marcus read Ericsson's papers. The findings were clear. Becoming expert at anything required about 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. Not just playing. Deliberate practice. Focused practice. Practice with feedback and correction. Practice that pushed abilities. 10,000 hours. If someone practiced 2 hours per day, that took about 14 years. If someone practiced 8 hours per day, that took about 3.5 years. That was why child prodigies existed. Not because they were born talented. Because they practiced adult amounts while still children. An 8-year-old who had practiced 8 hours daily since age 3 had already hit 10,000 hours. They had expert-level practice time in a child's body. Marcus contacted Dr. Gary Marcus. A different Marcus. Dr. Gary Marcus was a neuroscientist at NYU. He had written books about talent and practice. They talked on the phone. Dr. Gary Marcus was direct. The talent myth is harmful. It makes people think if they are not naturally good at something, they should not try. It makes parents think their children are either gifted or not. Neither is true. Everyone can learn music, Dr. Gary Marcus explained. Everyone. Some people learn faster. That is real. But faster learning is usually because of previous experience or better teaching, not magic talent genes. Marcus asked if there were any genetic factors in music ability. Genetics matter for some basic things, Dr. Gary Marcus said. Hand size affects what piano pieces are comfortable. Hearing ability affects pitch perception. General intelligence helps with learning anything, including music. But there is no music gene, no talent gene. The idea that some people are born to be musicians and others are not is wrong. He told Marcus about studies of twins. Identical twins raised apart. If musical talent was mostly genetic, identical twins would have very similar musical abilities even if raised separately. But that is not what research shows. Musical ability correlates much more with practice time and training than with genetics. Marcus read more research, studies about child development, about appropriate practice amounts for children, about the effects of intensive training on young bodies and minds. The research was concerning. One study looked at children who practiced music more than 4 hours daily before age 10. These children had higher rates of repetitive stress injuries, problems with hands, wrists, arms, and backs. Their bodies were not ready for that much repetitive motion. Another study looked at social development. Children who spent more than 5 hours daily on a single activity, any activity, showed delays in social skills. They had trouble making friends, trouble with empathy, trouble reading social cues, because they missed out on normal play and social interaction. A third study looked at mental health. Children in high-pressure performance situations like competitions showed elevated stress hormones, higher anxiety rates, more sleep problems. This was especially true for children under age 10. The research said clearly that intensive early training had costs, physical costs, social costs, emotional costs. Marcus found studies about practice in children. What amount was healthy? Most child development experts recommended no more than 1 hour of focused practice daily for children under age 8, no more than 2 hours for children 8 to 12, no more than 3 hours for teenagers. But prodigies practiced 2 to 3 times these amounts, sometimes more. They were exceeding recommended limits by huge margins. Marcus contacted Dr. Linda Chen, a pediatric psychologist who studied high-achieving children. The prodigy system often meets criteria for what we would otherwise call psychological harm, Dr. Chen told him. If a parent made their child do any other activity for 8 hours daily from age 3, With constant pressure and criticism, with no time for play or friends, we would investigate. We would worry about the child's well-being. But because it is music or sports or chess, because there is potential for fame and success, we treat it differently. We call it dedication instead of what it might actually be, which is too much pressure too young. Dr. Chen explained about identity development. Children need to develop a sense of self, a sense of who they are beyond what they do. When a child's entire identity is wrapped up in one thing, piano or anything else, that is unhealthy. What happens if they get injured? What happens if they want to quit? They lose their whole identity. She talked about the importance of diverse experiences. Children need unstructured play. They need time with peers. They need to explore different interests. They need free time. This is not optional for healthy development. This is necessary. When we take all that away and replace it with intensive training in one skill, we are gambling with that child's development. Sometimes kids turn out okay, but often they do not. Marcus read research about motivation, about why people persist at difficult things or quit. The research showed that intrinsic motivation, doing something because you enjoy it, led to better long-term outcomes than extrinsic motivation, doing something for rewards or to please others. But prodigy children were often extrinsically motivated. They practiced to make parents proud, to win competitions, to avoid disappointing people, not because they loved music. Studies showed that children trained this way often quit when the external pressure went away, when they left home, when they had freedom to choose, because they had never developed internal love for the activity. Marcus thought about the former prodigies he had interviewed. Most had quit. That matched the research. They had been pushed by external forces. When those forces went away, so did their motivation. Marcus found something else interesting. Research about deliberate practice showed it required intense focus, full attention, active problem solving. Marcus knew he needed to look deeper, beyond the interviews and science. He needed to see the real damage, the hidden casualties that nobody talked about. He started with therapy records. He worked with child psychologists who treated young musicians. They shared files with names removed. The files told disturbing stories. Patient A was 9 years old. She pulled out her own hair when she made mistakes during practice. She had bald spots on her head that she covered with headbands. Her parents did not notice for months. They were too focused on her upcoming competition. Patient B was 11. He had started cutting himself. Small cuts on his arms that he hid under long sleeves. When the therapist asked why, he said he needed to feel something other than the pressure, something he could control. Patient C was 7. She stopped eating. She would hide food, throw it away, say she was not hungry. She lost 15 pounds in 2 months. Her body was trying to disappear. When asked why, she said maybe if she got sick, she would not have to perform anymore. The therapist's notes were full of words like anxiety disorder, depression, self-harm, eating disorder, dissociation. These were children, some as young as 6, already showing serious mental health problems. Marcus met with Dr. James Rodriguez, a therapist who specialized in performing arts children. Dr. Rodriguez had been treating young musicians for 15 years. I see it over and over, Dr. Rodriguez said. They sat in his office. It was decorated to feel calm. Soft colors, comfortable chairs.
Talented children who are being destroyed by pressure. He told Marcus about one patient.
A boy named Alex, not his real name. Alex was 12 when his parents brought him to me. He was having panic attacks, severe ones. He would hyperventilate. His heart would race. He would think he was dying. These attacks happened before every performance. His parents wanted me to fix the anxiety so he could perform. That was their goal. Make the anxiety go away so nothing interfered with his career. Dr. Rodriguez looked tired, but the anxiety was not the problem. The anxiety was a symptom. The problem was that Alex was performing 30 times per year. He was practicing 7 hours daily. He had no friends, no hobbies, no life outside piano. His body was trying to tell him something was wrong. The panic attacks were his body's way of saying stop. I told the parents this. I said Alex needed to reduce his schedule, practice less, perform less, have more balance. They did not want to hear it. They switched therapists, found someone who would just prescribe medication. Marcus asked what happened to Alex. I do not know, Dr. Rodriguez said quietly. I hope he is okay, but I worry. Dr. Rodriguez showed Marcus statistics. In his practice, 70% of young musician patients showed signs of anxiety disorders. 40% showed signs of depression. 20% had engaged in self-harm at some point. These rates are much higher than the general population, he explained. Much higher. Something about the intensive training environment is creating these problems. He talked about perfectionism. These children are taught that mistakes are unacceptable. Every note must be perfect. Every performance must be flawless. That level of perfectionism is psychologically damaging. Normal children learn that mistakes are okay. That failure is part of learning. But prodigy children learn the opposite. They learn that any mistake means they are not good enough, that they have disappointed everyone. That standard is impossible to maintain, so they develop anxiety. Marcus found more concerning cases. A girl who developed trichotillomania, compulsively pulling out her eyelashes during practice. A boy who started having night terrors about forgetting his music on stage. A child who developed a stutter that only appeared when talking about piano. He found medical records too. Physical problems from intense practice. One 10-year-old had stress fractures in her wrists. Tiny breaks in the bones from repetitive motion. The doctor had told her parents she needed to stop playing for 6 months to heal. The parents' doctor shopped until they found someone who said she could keep playing with wrist braces. Another child had developed carpal tunnel syndrome at age 12, usually a condition in adults who worked on computers for years. But intensive piano practice could cause it too. Several children had chronic back problems. Sitting at a piano for hours daily put stress on growing spines. Some needed physical therapy. Some needed pain medication. All were told to keep practicing through the pain. Marcus interviewed parents who had regrets. Parents who looked back and wished they had done things differently. One mother, Angela, met with Marcus at her home. Her daughter Sarah had been a prodigy. Past tense. Sarah quit piano at 16, Angela said. Just stopped. Refused to play. We were devastated. Angela showed Marcus old videos. Sarah at age 5 playing in competitions. Sarah at 8 performing with an orchestra. Sarah at 12 being interviewed on local TV. A successful prodigy career. We gave her everything, Angela said. The best teachers, the best opportunities. We spent over $300,000 on her training. We moved twice to be near better teachers. I quit my job to manage her schedule. But I realize now we gave her everything except what she really needed. We gave her piano. We did not give her childhood. Angela talked about the moment Sarah quit. They had been fighting about a competition. Sarah did not want to go. Angela was insisting. Sarah looked at her mother and said something that changed everything. She said, "I hate you," Angela recalled. Tears filled her eyes. She said, "I hate you for making me do this. I hate piano. I hate performing. I hate everything about this life." I was shocked. I thought she loved it. I thought we were supporting her gift. But she hated it, and I had been too focused on the career to notice. Sarah now was 20. She was in college studying psychology. She did not speak to her parents often, maybe once per month. The relationship was damaged. I would give anything to go back, Angela said. To let her be a normal kid. To let her just take piano lessons for fun if she wanted. To put her happiness above achievement. But I cannot go back. Those years are gone. Marcus met another parent. A father named Robert. His son Michael had been a prodigy. Michael was now 24. He had attempted suicide at age 19. Robert could barely talk about it. His voice shook. Michael survived. Thank God, but it was close. Very close. The note he left said he could not handle the pressure anymore. Said he felt like a failure. Said everyone had believed in him and he had let them all down. Said he wanted the pain to stop. Robert had not understood the pain Michael was feeling. I thought we were helping him, pushing him to be great. I thought that was what good parents did, push their children to achieve. But I pushed too hard, way too hard, and I almost lost my son. Michael was alive but struggling. He was on medication. He was in therapy. He had not touched a piano since his suicide attempt. The relationship with his father was slowly healing, but it would never be the same. If I could tell parents one thing, Robert said, it would be this. No achievement is worth your child's life. None. If I could trade every competition Michael won, every performance he gave, every accolade he received, if I could trade all of that for a happy, healthy son, I would do it instantly. Marcus found patterns in these broken families. The pattern was always the same. Parents started with good intentions. They wanted to support their children's talents. They wanted to give them opportunities. They wanted them to succeed. But somewhere along the way, the child's well-being became secondary to the career. Practice time mattered more than happiness. Competition results mattered more than mental health. Achievement mattered more than the parent-child relationship. And by the time parents realized what was happening, the damage was done. Marcus looked at financial costs, too. Not just emotional costs, but money. The average family spent between $100,000 and $500,000 on a Prodigy career. Lessons, instruments, travel, competition fees, coaching, accompanists, recording sessions, marketing materials. Some families went into serious debt, took out loans, mortgaged houses, emptied retirement accounts, all betting on their child becoming the next big thing. One family had spent $400,000 over 12 years. Their daughter quit at age 15. She worked at Starbucks now. She was happy. But the family was still paying off debt from her piano career. The father told Marcus, "We thought it was an investment. We thought she would make it big and earn it back. We were wrong. Now we are broke and I am working past retirement age to pay off what we spent." Marcus found families where siblings suffered. When one child was the prodigy, other children got less attention, less resources, less parental time and energy. One woman told Marcus about growing up as the non-prodigy sibling. Her brother was the piano genius. She was normal. "My parents spent all their time and money on him," she said. "I understood. He was special. I was not. But it hurt. I felt invisible. I felt like I did not matter. My brother got private school education through homeschooling with hired tutors. I went to public school. He got international trips for competitions. I never left the state. He got a car when he turned 16. I had to buy my own car with money from a part-time job. The worst part was my parents never saw it as unfair. They thought they were just supporting his gift. But I needed support too." Marcus spent 6 months writing his book. He included everything: the interviews with current prodigy families, the confessions from industry insiders, the stories from former prodigies, the scientific research, the hidden casualties, all of it. He called the book The Prodigy Myth: What the Music Industry Does Not Want You to Know. Now he needed to publish it. Marcus sent his manuscript to academic publishers first. Publishers that specialized in music education, psychology, child development. These seemed like the right places. The first rejection came quickly. "Thank you for your submission. After careful review, we have decided not to move forward with publication. While your research is thorough, we feel the conclusions may be too controversial for our audience." Too controversial. That was a theme in the rejections. The second publisher said, "Your work challenges some fundamental assumptions in music education. We are concerned about the reaction from our established authors and readers." The third publisher was more honest. "We have relationships with major music schools and competitions. Publishing this book would damage those relationships. We cannot take that risk." Marcus tried 8 academic publishers. All said no, so he tried mainstream publishers. Publishers that did nonfiction. Books for general audiences. Maybe they would be interested. One publisher seemed excited at first. An editor called him. "This is fascinating material. Really important work. Let me talk to my team." A week later, the editor called back. Her voice sounded different. Careful. "Marcus, I have to be honest with you. We did some research. We reached out to contacts in the music industry. The feedback we got was very negative. People said if we published your book, they would not cooperate with any of our future projects. They said music schools would not allow us to interview their teachers or students. Competition organizers said they would not give us access." "So you are saying no?" Marcus asked. "I am saying we cannot take the risk. The music industry is interconnected. If we make enemies there, it hurts our other books. I am sorry. Your work is important, but we cannot be the ones to publish it." Marcus felt frustrated. The book was being rejected not because it was bad, not because it was wrong, but because it told truths that powerful people did not want told. He kept trying. More publishers, more rejections. The reasons varied, but the message was the same. Too risky, too controversial, too damaging to industry relationships. One publisher told him directly, "You need to soften your conclusions. Take out the word exploitation. Do not call it psychological harm. May be presented as just different approaches with different outcomes. Make it more balanced." But Marcus could not do that. The evidence was clear. Softening his conclusions would be lying, would be helping to continue the myth that was hurting children. After 15 rejections, Marcus decided to publish independently. He would self-publish, put it online, make it available to anyone who wanted to read it. He hired an editor, a designer for the cover, someone to format it properly. He used his own money, his savings from years of work. The book went live on Amazon. Marcus promoted it on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. He wrote about what he had found. He shared quotes from the book. He posted statistics. At first, nothing happened. A few people bought it. A few reviews appeared. It was slow. Then something changed. A former child prodigy with a large social media following posted about the book. She wrote, "This book tells my story. The story the music world does not want you to hear. Everyone needs to read this." Her post got thousands of shares. People started buying the book, reading it, sharing their own stories in response. Parents wrote about pushing their children too hard, about regretting it, about wishing they had known better. Former prodigies wrote about their experiences, about being relieved that someone finally said what they had been feeling. Teachers wrote about the pressure they felt, about being caught between what was good for children and what parents wanted. The book started climbing bestseller lists, first in music education categories, then in parenting categories, then in general nonfiction. Marcus started getting interview requests. Podcasts wanted to talk to him. Blogs wanted articles. Local news wanted to feature him. He said yes to everything. He told the story over and over. He shared the research, the interviews, the evidence. Some people loved it. They said he was brave, that he was speaking truth to power, that he was protecting children. But other people hated it. And those people had power. Marcus started getting emails, angry emails, from teachers whose business he was hurting, from competition organizers who said he was destroying families' dreams, from agents who said he was killing the classical music industry. One teacher wrote, "You are taking away hope from families. You are telling them their children are not special. That is cruel." A competition director wrote, "You are destroying the future of classical music. Without young performers, the art form will die. You are responsible for that." An agent wrote, "You clearly failed as a prodigy and now you are bitter. You want everyone else to fail too. This book is just jealousy." The emails got worse. Some included threats. "You better watch your back. People know where you live. You will regret this." Marcus reported the threatening emails to police. They said they would investigate, but there was not much they could do. Then professional consequences started. Marcus had been working as a music psychologist. He had clients. He did consulting work with schools. One school called to cancel their contract. "We have gotten complaints from parents. They do not want their children working with someone who is so negative about music education." Another school said, "Our donors include people who run major competitions. They have asked us not to work with you anymore. We have to respect their wishes." Marcus lost half his clients within 2 months. His income dropped significantly. Then the professional attacks came. Other researchers started publishing responses to his work. Articles with titles like "The Dangers of Discouraging Talent Development" and "Why Intensive Training is Necessary for Excellence." These articles did not address Marcus's evidence. They did not refute his research. They just said he was wrong, that he was damaging, that parents should ignore him. One article said, "Marcus Chen's book is irresponsible fear-mongering. It will prevent talented children from getting the training they need. It prioritizes average outcomes over exceptional achievement." Music journals that had rejected his book now published critiques of it. Critiques written by people who had financial ties to the prodigy industry, teachers who ran intensive training programs, directors of youth competitions, people who benefited from the system staying the same. Marcus tried to respond. He wrote articles defending his work, pointing out the conflicts of interest in the critiques, providing more evidence. But the journals would not publish his responses. They said they had already covered the topic enough. A major music education conference invited Marcus to present. He was excited. This would be a chance to share his research with educators directly, but 2 weeks before the conference, they uninvited him. We have received significant pushback from conference sponsors. Several major sponsors have threatened to withdraw funding if you present. We cannot lose that money. We have to cancel your session. The sponsors were music schools, competition organizations, instrument manufacturers. All part of the system Marcus was critiquing. One foundation that had supported Marcus's earlier research called him, "We are under pressure to distance ourselves from you. Major donors are upset about your book. We may have to stop funding your work." Marcus realized what was happening. He was being blacklisted. Not officially. Nobody put out a statement saying, "Do not work with Marcus Chen." But the word spread through the industry. Marcus was trouble. Marcus was dangerous. Marcus should be avoided. People who had agreed to be interviewed for his book started having consequences too. Teachers who had spoken to him off the record were somehow identified. Students stopped coming to them. Other teachers refused to refer students to them. One teacher called Marcus crying. "I thought the interview was anonymous, but someone figured out it was me. I have lost 30 students in 3 weeks. My business is dying. I should not have talked to you." Marcus felt terrible. He had tried to protect people, but the industry was powerful. They had ways of finding out who talked, and ways of punishing them. A legal threat came next. A large music school sent Marcus a letter from their lawyers. They claimed his book contained false information about their programs. They demanded he remove certain sections or face a lawsuit. Marcus reviewed the sections they mentioned. Everything he wrote was true. He had evidence. But fighting a lawsuit would cost money he did not have. The school had expensive lawyers. They could drag it out for years. Bankrupt him with legal fees even if he won. His own lawyer advised him, "You can fight this. You would probably win. But it will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do you have that kind of money?" Marcus did not. He was already losing income from lost clients. He could not afford a long legal battle. He ended up removing some specific names from the online version of his book, changed some details, made it harder to identify specific schools. He hated doing it. It felt like giving in. But he could not risk losing everything in a lawsuit. More legal threats followed. A competition organization said he had defamed them. An agent said he had damaged her reputation. None of them had grounds for a real lawsuit. But they knew the threat alone was powerful. Marcus started to understand something. The music industry was not just protecting their business. They were protecting a whole system. A system that made money for lots of people. And when you threatened that system, those people fought back hard. They fought with rejection, with professional consequences, with threats, with legal pressure, with public attacks on his credibility, with anything they could use. Marcus's friends started advising him to back off. "Just stop. Take the book down. Go back to your normal work. This is not worth destroying your career over." His family worried about him. His brother said, "You have made your point. People have heard you. You do not need to keep fighting. Think about your own well-being." Even some people who agreed with him said he should stop. You are just one person. You cannot change an entire industry. Sometimes you have to accept that. Marcus thought about quitting, thought about giving up. The pressure was intense. The consequences were real. His career was damaged. His reputation was being attacked. His income had dropped. He was stressed, exhausted. But then he would get an email from a parent. "Thank you for your book. I was about to start my daughter on an intensive training program. After reading your research, I decided against it. She is taking normal lessons instead, and she is so happy. You saved her childhood." Or an email from a former prodigy. "Reading your book made me cry. Someone finally understands. Someone finally said what I lived through. Thank you for giving me validation." Or from a teacher. "Your book made me rethink everything. I have changed how I teach. I am more careful about pushing students too hard. I am focusing more on their joy and less on perfection. Thank you." These emails kept Marcus going. Because people were listening, things were starting to change. Even if the industry fought back, the message was getting out. Parents were questioning intensive training. Teachers were rethinking their methods. Young musicians were standing up for themselves. The conversation was shifting. Marcus had started something important. And even though there were consequences, even though people tried to silence him, he could not stop now. The children needed someone on their side, someone willing to stand up to the industry, someone willing to tell the truth even when it was costly. Marcus would be that someone, no matter what they threw at him, no matter how hard they tried to shut him down. The truth was more important than his career, more important than his reputation, more important than being comfortable. Children were being hurt. And as long as that continued, Marcus would keep speaking up, keep fighting, keep telling the truth, even if he had to fight the entire music industry to do it. 6 months after Marcus published his book, something unexpected happened. A video went viral. A mother posted a video on TikTok. She was filming her 8-year-old daughter's piano practice. The girl was crying, saying her hands hurt, asking if she could stop. The mother's voice came from behind the camera. Just 30 more minutes. You want to win the competition, right? The video was only 15 seconds long, but it was powerful, real, raw. The mother had posted it proudly. She thought it showed dedication. She captioned it, "This is what it takes to be a champion." But people did not react the way she expected. The comments were angry. This is child abuse. Let her stop when she is in pain. This is exactly what Marcus Chen's book warns about. The video got millions of views. News outlets picked it up. Child welfare experts weighed in. Pediatricians talked about the danger of ignoring pain signals in children. The mother took the video down. But it was too late. It had been screen recorded and shared everywhere. It became a symbol, proof of what Marcus had been saying. Suddenly, Marcus's book was everywhere again, back on bestseller lists, being discussed on major news programs. Parents were talking about it. Teachers were reading it. The conversation exploded. A major newspaper asked to interview Marcus. How common is what we saw in that video? The reporter asked. Very common, Marcus said. I have watched hundreds of hours of practice footage. Parents often push through pain, through tears, through exhaustion. They think they are teaching dedication, but they are teaching children to ignore their bodies, to prioritize achievement over well-being. That has lifelong consequences. More videos started surfacing. Other parents had posted similar content. They had thought it was inspirational, but now people were seeing it differently. A video of a 6-year-old practicing for 3 hours straight, another of a 9-year-old being yelled at for wrong notes, another of a child missing a birthday party to practice. These had been online for years, but nobody had questioned them before. The prodigy myth had made them seem acceptable, even admirable. Now people were horrified. Online parenting groups started discussing the book. Debates raged. Some parents defended intensive training, said it was necessary for excellence, said critics just did not understand dedication. But many parents started questioning what they were doing. Am I pushing too hard? Became a common question. How do I know if my child really loves music or is just trying to please me? Another common one. Teachers started reaching out to Marcus, not to attack him, to thank him, to ask for advice. I have been uncomfortable with some of my students' schedules for years, one teacher wrote. But parents wanted it, and I needed the income. Your book gave me permission to speak up, to set boundaries, to say no to unhealthy practice amounts. A teachers' association invited Marcus to speak at their national conference, the same type of conference that had uninvited him before. But this was a different organization, a progressive one focused on child well-being. Marcus gave a presentation about healthy music education, about balancing skill development with childhood, about teaching for love of music, not just for competition success. The room was packed, over 500 music teachers. When Marcus finished, they gave him a standing ovation. Afterwards, dozens of teachers came to talk to him, to share their own concerns, to ask how to change their teaching practices. I have been teaching Prodigies for 20 years, one older teacher said. I have watched so many of them burn out, quit, develop problems. I always felt guilty, but I did not know what else to do. Your work has shown me there is another way. Change started happening in small ways. Some music schools revised their policies, limited practice time for young students, required rest days, mandated regular breaks during lessons, set minimum age requirements for intensive programs. One prestigious conservatory announced new guidelines. Students under 12 will practice no more than 3 hours daily. Students must have at least 1 day per week with no formal practice. Students will receive education about healthy practice habits and body awareness. It was not everything Marcus wanted, but it was progress. Some competition organizations made changes too. One major international competition added a new category, Joy Division, for students who wanted to perform without rankings or prizes. Just play music for the love of it. Another competition changed age divisions. We are no longer accepting competitors under age 7, their announcement said. Research shows intensive competitive performance can be harmful to very young children. We want to support healthy musical development. Parent organizations formed. Groups focused on balanced music education. They shared Marcus's research. They supported each other in resisting pressure to overtrain children. One group created guidelines for parents. Questions to ask before entering your child in intensive training. Warning signs that your child is overstressed. How to prioritize well-being over achievement. These resources spread online. Parents shared them. Teachers shared them. Even some music schools started including them in information packets. Media coverage continued. Not all positive. Some articles defended traditional intensive training, argued that excellence required sacrifice, said Marcus was promoting mediocrity, but many articles supported his message. Pediatricians wrote opinion pieces about healthy child development. Psychologists discussed the importance of balanced childhoods. Former prodigies shared their stories. A documentary filmmaker contacted Marcus. She wanted to make a film about the prodigy system, about the costs and consequences, about the children left behind. Marcus connected her with people he had interviewed. Former prodigies willing to tell their stories on camera, parents with regrets, teachers wanting to speak out. The documentary took a year to make. When it released, it won awards. It was shown at film festivals. It was picked up by a streaming service. Millions of people watched it. The film was powerful. It showed the reality behind the performances, the crying children, the stressed families, the adults still dealing with childhood trauma, the broken dreams. One scene showed a parent watching old videos of their child, seeing the exhaustion in their child's eyes, the tears during practice, the forced smiles at competitions. The parent started crying. I did not see it then. I was so focused on the achievement. I did not see that my child was suffering. That scene made viewers cry too. Parents around the world saw themselves, saw what they might be missing, saw the cost of pushing too hard. The documentary included experts too, pediatricians, psychologists, child development specialists, all saying the same thing. Early intensive training often did more harm than good. After the documentary, Marcus got even more invitations to speak. Universities wanted him, parent groups, school districts, medical conferences. He talked about how to support children's interests without exploitation, how to tell the difference between a child's passion and a parent's dream, how to create healthy learning environments. He started a foundation, Healthy Arts Education for Children. The foundation provided resources for parents and teachers, funded research on child development and performing arts, offered grants to schools implementing balanced programs. The foundation also helped former child performers, offered therapy support, career counseling for those leaving performing arts, community for people processing their experiences. Marcus met regularly with adults who had been prodigies. They called themselves survivors. Survivors of the prodigy system. Together they supported each other, shared their stories, worked on healing. One of these survivors, Emily Torres from earlier in Marcus's research, became an advocate. She started speaking at schools, telling her story, warning about the dangers of overtraining. I'm not saying do not study music, Emily would tell audiences. Music is beautiful. Learning an instrument is wonderful, but it should bring joy. It should be balanced with other parts of childhood. It should not consume everything. Students responded to Emily. She was close to their age. She understood. She had lived it. Her message resonated in ways adult experts could not match. More former prodigies started speaking out. Each had their own story, their own pain, but also their own healing journey. Together they created a movement. Not everyone was happy about the changes. Some famous teachers continued defending traditional intensive training. Some competition directors said the new guidelines were killing excellence. Some parents insisted their children were different, special, needed the intensive training. But the conversation had shifted. People questioned things now, asked about well-being, worried about costs, could not ignore the evidence anymore. Marcus saw concrete changes, fewer videos of crying children practicing, fewer posts celebrating extreme practice schedules, fewer competitions for very young children, more posts about children enjoying music, playing for fun, performing without pressure, learning because they wanted to, not because they had to. 3 years after publishing his book, Marcus got an email that made him cry. It was from Sophie Zhang's mother, Linda, one of the first families he had studied. "I want to thank you," Linda wrote. "I read your book 2 years ago. I was angry at first, but I kept thinking about it, watching Sophie, really watching her. I realized she was not happy. She was good at piano, but she was not happy. So we made changes, reduced her practice time, let her go back to regular school, let her have friends and hobbies. She still plays piano, but now it is just one part of her life, not her whole life. And she smiles now, real smiles, not performance smiles. I got my daughter back. I am sorry it took so long. I am sorry for what we put her through. But thank you for opening my eyes, for helping me see what was really important." Marcus wrote back immediately. He thanked Linda for having the courage to change, for putting Sophie's well-being first, for being willing to admit mistakes and correct them. He got more emails like this. Parents who had changed course, who had pulled back from intensive training, who had let their children be children again. Not every story had a happy ending. Some children had already been too damaged. Some families could not be repaired. Some former prodigies still struggled with the trauma. But progress was real. Lives were being changed. Children were being protected. The system was slowly shifting. Marcus knew there was still work to do. The prodigy myth was deeply embedded. It would take years, maybe generations, to fully change. But the change had started. One afternoon, Marcus went to a local piano recital. Not a competition. Not a professional performance. Just a recital at a community music school. Children performed. Some played beautifully. Some made mistakes. All of them looked like they were having fun. Their parents clapped and cheered for everyone, not just their own children. Nobody was recording to post online. Nobody was comparing. Everyone was just enjoying music. After the recital, Marcus talked to one of the teachers. "This is what music education should be," the teacher said. "About joy, about expression, about learning and growing, not about being perfect or being the best." Marcus watched a little girl, maybe 9 years old, talking excitedly to her parents about the piece she had played. She made a mistake in the middle but kept going. She was proud. Her parents were proud. Not because she was going to be famous, but because she had worked hard and done her best and enjoyed herself. That was the future Marcus was fighting for. Music education that served children, that enhanced their lives without consuming them, that taught skills and passion without demanding perfection and sacrifice. He thought about his own daughter. She was 9 now. She took piano lessons, 30 minutes of practice most days when she felt like it. Sometimes she skipped days. Sometimes she practiced longer because she wanted to learn a song she liked. She was not a prodigy. She would never be on a concert stage. She would never win competitions. She was just a kid who liked music, who played for fun, who had a balanced, happy childhood. And Marcus could not be prouder. That evening, Marcus sat at his computer. He was writing again. A new book. This one about what healthy music education looked like. Positive steps forward. How to support children's interests without exploitation. His phone buzzed. Another message from someone thanked him. Another parent who had made changes. Another teacher who had new perspective. Another former prodigy who felt validated and understood. Marcus had paid a price for speaking the truth. His career had been damaged. He had made enemies. He had faced threats and attacks and professional consequences. But it had been worth it. Children were being protected now. Fewer kids were being pushed into unhealthy training. More families understood the real costs. More teachers taught with compassion rather than just pushing for achievement. The prodigy myth was not dead, but it was wounded, weakened. More people saw through it now, and that made everything worthwhile. Marcus kept writing, kept speaking, kept fighting for children who could not fight for themselves. For balanced childhoods, for joy in music, for well-being over achievement. The music industry had tried to silence him. They had failed. The truth was out there now. The evidence was available. People were listening. And slowly, one family at a time, one teacher at a time, one child at a time, things were changing. That was all Marcus had ever wanted. To tell the truth. To protect children. To make the world a little bit better. He looked at a picture on his desk. Him at age 7, in a tuxedo, standing next to a piano. He looked tired in that picture, small, burdened. Next to it was a picture of his daughter, also at a piano, but she was laughing, making a silly face, looking like a kid, happy, free, unburdened. That was the difference. That was what he had fought for. That was why it all mattered. The prodigy myth had almost destroyed Marcus as a child, but as an adult he had fought back. He had told the truth. He had protected others from what he went through, and in doing so, he had finally found peace with his own past. He had turned his pain into purpose, his trauma into advocacy, his story into a warning that might save others. Marcus smiled, turned back to his writing. There was still work to do. But for the first time in his life, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. Fighting for children, fighting for truth, fighting for a world where kids could just be kids, where music was about joy, not pressure, where childhood was protected, not sacrificed. That was a fight worth having. And Marcus would keep fighting it for as long as it took, one child at a time, one family at a time, one changed mind at a time, until every child had the chance to just be a child, to play, to learn, to grow, to be happy. That was the world Marcus was working toward. And with each person who read his work, each family who made changes, each teacher who taught differently, that world was becoming more real. The truth had been hidden, but now it was out. And truth, once released, could not be contained. The prodigy myth was being challenged, and slowly, steadily, things were changing for the better. That was enough. That was everything.